Welcome to CNR Horror Stories. This is C, and today I have 9 creepy tales to tell you about kids encountering strange moments with their teachers. Odd ones along with cruel ones. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon to receive further updates on our channel. Turn off your lights and sit back to enjoy these stories. Let's begin. A group of 14-year-old students in the UK decided to play a prank on their science teacher. They smuggled a video camera into the classroom and planned to make the teacher lose his temper so they could catch it on camera. The students started misbehaving, shouting abuse at the teacher and calling him names. They never predicted what would happen next. When one boy told him to fuck off, the teacher suddenly snapped. He picked up a dumbbell and began hitting one boy over the head with it, shouting,
Die! Die! Die!
CCTV footage showed terrified students fleeing from the enraged teacher. The boy was severely injured, but he didn't die and later recovered. After a trial, the teacher was sentenced to community service and banned from ever teaching again. A history teacher in China named Li was accused of killing one of his students. The victim was an 11-year-old girl named Zhang. The teacher flew into a rage and slammed her face into her desk. Then he stomped on her head, kicked her, punched her, and beat her with a metal bar until she was unconscious. The teacher calmly told his class that he was going to take the young girl to the school infirmary. Then he lifted her limp and motionless body off the floor, and as the other students watched in horror, he tossed her out the window. The classroom was on the 4th floor, and the girl fell to her death, landing on the pavement below. Her stunned classmates ran out of the room, screaming and crying, and classes were suspended. The teacher was arrested and he was found to be mentally ill. For this reason, he escaped the death penalty and was put in a mental asylum. When I was 8 years old, we had a substitute teacher. As the day wore on, her behavior became increasingly erratic. She was getting us to draw dead people hanging from a noose. She would put her hands around the necks of some kids and start talking about Jesus. We all started to get really scared, so a group of us said we needed to use the toilet and managed to sneak out and tell the headmaster. He came into the classroom a short while later. When he saw the drawings of dead people, he tried to get her out of the classroom, but she refused to leave. He ended up having to grab her under the arms and drag her kicking and screaming out of the room. For the next 2 hours, we all just sat there quietly in disbelief. A few days later, all of our parents were called into the school for a meeting, and it was explained that the teacher had suffered a mental breakdown. A group of teachers in Tennessee took a class of 76 grade students to a state park on a field trip. The teachers decided to play a prank on the kids, telling them that a mad gunman was on the loose. The students flew into a panic and lay on the floor or hid on the tables, crying and praying for their lives as the teacher, dressed in a hooded sweatshirt, went around pretending to be the gunman, shaking doorknobs and knocking on windows to scare the kids. The students were eventually told it was a prank, but their parents weren't amused. The teachers apologized and claimed they had done it to teach the kids how to react if there was a real crazed gunman on the loose. My high school teacher would always wear shorts. When he was looking at your homework, he would put his foot up on your desk and lean on it. If you looked up, you could see straight up the leg of his shorts, and he never wore any underwear. It was horrifying. Sometimes he would lean in and his crouch would be directly in front of your face. Once he did it right behind one of my friends, and she said she could feel something bumping against her shoulder. There were always deep gasps of disgust when he went around the classroom checking our homework. A school teacher in Malaysia was charged with the murder of a 7-year-old boy. The boy was accused of stealing a couple of dollars from a classmate. As the punishment, the teacher tied the boy to a window, then caned him and beat him for 2 hours. The boy fell into a coma and died in hospital 3 days later. The teacher was found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. My teacher was pretty weird. She used to wipe the blackboard with her hand and then lick the chalk off her fingers. She would also scratch her back frequently and have some skin under her fingernails. One morning during a test, I looked up and watched her take her hand and insert it down her blouse. She wiped it down her chest, across her stomach, around her sides, under her armpits, and then took it back out again. Wow, that was weird, I thought to myself. 10 seconds later, she looked around the class to check if anyone was watching, then smelled her hand and licked it from the bottom of her palm to the tips of her fingers and began sucking on her fingertips. I used to sit in the first row, and she often borrowed my pencils without asking. I would cringe as I watched her holding them, chewing them, licking them. I couldn't bear to use them after she touched them. By the end of the semester, I had 2 pencil cases, one for my own pencils and one for the pencils she touched. A school principal in India was accused of beating an 11-year-old boy to death over a stolen pencil. One of the students in the class lost their pencil. The principal searched the boy, and after the missing pencil was found on him, the teacher slapped and punched him. The boy later began vomiting blood and died on the way to the hospital. The school principal was arrested and charged with culpable homicide. When I was in high school, one of my teachers stalked me for a year. He was in his late 60s. He would show up at the fast food joint where I worked and wait all day for me to come in. He used to wait for me outside work and follow me when I was driving home. He even followed me into the grocery store. It was so creepy. I saw him every single day for months. He didn't even try to hide the fact that he was stalking me. I had to drive home by a different route every day to avoid him. One day, he walked up to my little sister and started talking to her. I flipped out and called my dad to tell him what was happening. My dad came and threatened to kill the teacher if he ever came near either of us again. The teacher never did come back, but for a long time I kept his name, description, telephone number, and license plate number taped to my refrigerator, just in case I ever went missing, so the police would know where to look.